he wishes to question my motives, right? And so if we have disagreements about entitlement programs or subsidies for the Rust Belt or something, that doesn't allow him apparently to question my motives in disliking the country.
Okay,
if we disagree about Israel, then he immediately goes to apparently.
Okay, so to clean that up one more time, even though I know you've done it a million times, he basically implied that you want troops on the ground in Israel.
Of course, I don't want American troops on the ground. Of course, I don't. And this implication that my foreign policy is about what Israel needs and would benefit from first. I've never suggested that America ought to go to war with Iran. I've never suggested that America ought to put troops on the ground in Israel. I've never suggested that America ought to get directly involved in a war with Hezbollah, for example, or Hamas, for example. I've never said any of those things. Tucker then goes publicly and says that I want troops on the ground in the Middle East in order to protect Israel, which is an absurdity because I've never claimed that.
I asked you this last time I had you on. What do we do to heal what seems to be that divide on the right? I think most people, certainly my audience, is like, okay, fine. The left are all bananas. The woke are bananas. Biden's got dementia. The Democrats are insane. Like, okay, fine. This thing that's happening on the right now, this thing needs to be healed and quick. And I would say partly, it's why I have no desire personally. I'm not speaking to you. It's why I have personally no desire to go after Candace. It's like, her idea is what it is, but it's like we have to solve something on the right putting Candace aside, maybe between you and Tucker, let's say, like, how do we put that together so that it's like, we're all going to vote for Trump. We're all going to try to, restore America to something.
When it comes to Candace, I've not said word one about Candace since like last November.
Yeah.
So that is what it is. Sure. I have not publicly.
So I mean it more clearly between, say, whatever the divide now is between you and Tucker. When Tucker said Ben doesn't love America.
I offered Tucker multiple times to come on the show and hash this out.
Yeah.
It was Tucker who accused me of dual loyalty.
Yeah.
It was Tucker who suggested I hate the country.
Yeah.
That was not me saying that about Tucker. I've said precisely the reverse about Tucker, which is that I believe that Tucker loves the country. So it is not up to me to heal a breach that was created by Tucker there. I've criticized Tucker's policy positions. I've never criticized his motives.
Yeah.
I've never suggested that Russia was in the pay of the Russians, that Tucker was in the pay of the Russians. I've never suggested that Tucker is an America hater, that he despises the country in some sort of deep, dark, conspiratorial way or anything like that.
You actually just said the reverse.
I just said the reverse, and I've said the reverse multiple times since he said the reverse about me, since he said that I hate the country back in December. Again, I've reached out to him. Our team has reached out to him many times. Okay, so
if I text him and offer to moderate a debate, you're down to do it.
Yes, I mean, frankly, I
don't even have to be there, but I'm willing to do it if that helps.
Of course, I've literally personally texted him about this. Yes. Yeah.
So, what do you think the confusion is on the foreign policy? I think the divide with you and Tucker seems to be a foreign policy divide, not a domestic issue.
I think that we do have domestic policy divides, by the way.
Sure, but that doesn't seem to be like
he doesn't seem to put emphasis on that.
Right. It seems to be
mainly because he wishes to question my motives, right? And so if we have disagreements about entitlement programs or subsidies for the Rust Belt or something, that doesn't allow him apparently to question my motives in disliking the country. Okay, if we disagree about Israel, then he immediately goes to apparently.
Okay, so to clean that up one more time, even though I know you've done it a million times, he basically implied that you want troops on the ground in Israel.
Of course, I don't want American troops on the ground. Of course, I don't. And this implication that my foreign policy is about what Israel needs and would benefit from first. I've never suggested that America ought to go to war with Iran. I've never suggested that America ought to put troops on the ground in Israel. I've never suggested that America ought to get directly involved in a war with Hezbollah, for example, or Hamas, for example. I've never said any of those things. Tucker then goes publicly and says that I want troops on the ground in the Middle East in order to protect Israel, which is an absurdity because I've never claimed that. The only thing
I've never even heard an Israeli say that. I mean,
Israelis don't want that.
They don't want it.
But even if they did want it, I would still oppose it because it's not good for the United States to have troops on the ground fighting Hezbollah. There's no reason for the United States to be doing that. That changes if they start firing on American troops. But right now they're not.
Right.
And by the way, this is the nice thing about having allies that actually have military wherewithal. What I've suggested is better to have American allies fighting bad guys using money that we effectively lend to them because all aid that goes to Israel is then spent back in the United States on American military programs.
Can you just explain that a little bit more clearly? Because I think people are very confused about this. They keep saying that we're just giving the money. Now, to me, you could slash the entire budget of the whole government by 25% across the board. It would be fine. But can you explain that there's some confusion about like, oh, we just hand Israel cash?
That's not how foreign aid works. So the way that the foreign aid to Israel works is that Israel is mandated by American law that when they receive foreign aid from the United States, they must spend it with American contractors. They are not allowed to go out for competitive bids on the technology that they are buying from American military contractors. If the aid to Israel
stops, it's a subsidy.
It's a subsidization of the American military industrial complex.
Which people can have a legit argument about.
Right. You can say that you want the American military industrial complex to die, or you can suggest that that's what's making American foreign policy, though I think that that's incredibly naive and stupid. But you can make that argument, but that's the claim that America is basically just cutting a check to Israel and seeing no benefit on the other end. First of all, America gets massive intelligence benefits from Israel, which is the largest intelligence base for the United States in the Middle East. Second of all, Israel is essentially a floating aircraft carrier or a non-floating aircraft carrier for the United States. America works with the Israelis and uses Israeli assets in order to pursue targets in the Middle East. Third, America gets an enormous amount of sophisticated military technology from Israel. Israel has a long record of taking military technology that it gains and then upgrading it tremendously, including, by the way, the F-35. Mm-hmm. The F-35, which Israel gained, Israel then used its own technologies in order to enhance. So when you see in the movies or when you see American military pilots in F-35 and they have the over-the-horizon helmets where they're seeing stuff happening over the horizon, that's an Israeli military invention that ended up in the United States because of the military cooperation between Israel and the United States.
Are you telling me all the progressives are going to have to boycott Top Gun 3 if they make it?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's, again, like you can make the case against foreign aid. That's fine. But at least know what the hell you're talking about. And people don't know enough to care, and they don't care enough to know. And that's you know, a continuing problem.
So what do you think? Is there anything else we can do about that on the right? I'm trying to build some bridges right now. It's how I started my career. Maybe I wasn't always perfect at it, but like at this particular moment, it seems like we got to build some bridges. So I'm just using you and Tucker as avatars in this. Like I'm talking about
I am
the
willing
idea set.
to talk with Tucker anytime, anywhere.
But I mean,
I've
even beyond you
before.
and Tucker, I'm talking about just like, what do we do about this thing that's happening right now?
Yeah, again, unless you have evidence of motivation that is corrupt or wrong, then you should not attribute motivation to people. Emotivism is the death of politics. This is something Alistair McIntyre has talked about at length, the philosopher. He has suggested that the death of politics is what he calls emotivism, which is attributing motive to the person's argument in order to effectively dismiss the argument. And that's what we're seeing a ton of on the right now. When Tucker is talking about my political beliefs about Israel, he's not arguing with the actual beliefs that I hold. He's either strawmanning a belief that I don't hold, or he's attributing a corrupt motivation to me, or both, which is actually what he was doing right there, which I find objectionable. Just on a personal level, I find that objectionable and disgusting. And you know, again, he's perfectly. I've offered him the opportunity to clear that up. He can clear that up anytime he wants. I have never, once again, implied or suggested that Tucker has corrupt motivations. I think he believes what he believes for whatever reasons he believes it, and then I've tried to take on the arguments that he makes, whether they are good or bad. Once you can have arguments and discussions over issues. What you can't do is if you get in a room with somebody and you say that person is racist or evil, the conversation is now over. Now, the person may be racist and evil or anti-Semitic or whatever it is, but you should be able to show the receipts as to why you believe that thing, as opposed to just seeing the position and then immediately jumping to, oh, the position means inherently. This is why, again, when it comes to the Israel position, there are people who work for the Daily Wire who disagree with me about Israel. Matt Walsh is not an anti-Semite, despite the fact that we definitely disagree about Middle Eastern policy, because there's no evidence that he's an anti-Semite or anything remotely like it. That again, this particular game, which used to be kind of a preserve of the left, right? It's now infected all of American politics, and I think that's the ugliest thing that's happened over the course of the last 10 years. Is this kind of move toward the easiest way to quote unquote destroy your enemies is not to actually dismantle their arguments. The easiest way to do it is to dismiss them as human beings.
If you're looking for more honest and thoughtful conversations about politics instead of nonstop screaming, check out our politics playlist. And if you want to watch full interviews on a variety of topics, watch our full episode playlist, all right over here. And to get notified of all future videos, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell.